The fantasy playoffs are here, week 14, and it's crazy because we've had one of the quietest weeks on the waiver wire that I can remember. Not a ton of huge pickups this week, but as always, plenty of people to talk about, plenty of people to consider picking up, adding to your bench. Before we get into it, DraftKings, sign up, use promo code FST, follow the link in the card or in the description. Deposit $5 more, and they will hook you up with a free entry into a cash game. What's not to like about that? So let's start talking about waiver wire. Running backs, I don't think there's really anyone that should be added in all leagues, but plenty of guys to consider as some depth for your bench just to see how these guys pan out. James White, at this point, you got to consider him. I do see a lot of similarities with him and Dion Lewis when they're out on the field. The Patriots were playing mainly from behind. They were throwing a lot, so I think that's why James White got more of a run this week. But, they're proving that they have confidence with him out on the field, so he's going to be kind of a situational player, but not a bad guy that, if you guess right with him, he could have a decent week anytime from week to week. John Crockett, we got to talk about him with Green Bay. Right when Fat Eddie Lacy looks like he's getting things going, he misses curfew, and they bring in Crockett. Crockett looked okay. He didn't look amazing. He did bring some energy out onto the field. I think he's worth an add in deeper leagues just to see how this pans out. I don't really see much coming from it, but again, will he jump over Starks? I don't know. Will he stay ahead of Lacy? I don't know. But whoever the starting running back ends up being on Green Bay is going to have value, but it's just so hard to predict right now. But he's just a flyer, not a bad guy to take a gamble on. Chris Polk, another situation that's just turning out to be a huge mess. All signs pointed to Alfred Blue, controlling the majority of the carries for the rest of the year, and that's basically been what's happening until this week when Chris Polk comes in and he gets the majority of the carries. He averaged over 5 yards a carry, so we'll see, but I think it's more than likely going to continue to be just a three-headed monster out there. But again, not a bad guy to add just to kind of see what happens over the next week or two. Bilal Powell is another guy that I think should be added to a lot of benches this week. When you look at what he did at the beginning of the year before he got injured, it was pretty good. You look at what he's done since he's come back, it's pretty good. Chris Ivory hasn't really been, going nuts like he was at the beginning of the year. I think Powell could have some value down the stretch. Out of all these guys, I would say Powell has the potential to be the most consistent. So if you're going to pick from any of those, I think Powell's an interesting pick. Let's talk about receivers. Doug Baldwin. If you watched my show last week, I talked about him, but I also said he's going to be hit or miss like he's always been, but he did it again. So, you can't ignore it too long. You gotta respect it to a point, and I do think he will continue to be somewhat of a roller coaster ride at times, but the Seahawks are just on fire right now. That offense is just running on all cylinders, and Baldwin has been a huge part. He and Wilson really seem to be on the same page, so he might make me eat my words and just finish the year on a tear. So, at the very least, he needs to be added to every bench, and then you can see if you can work him in your lineup from week to week. But I do think at this point he deserves the respect of the fantasy world. Devontae Parker looked pretty good. Rashard Matthews is banged up. Parker's going to continue to start for them. Found the end zone. The rookie is very talented. It was a highlight reel catch. He and Tannehill have a much easier matchup this week. They're going up against the Giants, so might not be a bad week. I think Parker, any type of keeper dynasty league, I think he needs to be picked up. But, I do like him week 14, and I do like him for the rest of the year. But, again, only an add in deeper leagues. Cecil Shorts, I think, is a good add in deeper leagues. I like him as a pickup and play week 14 in PPR leagues. They're going up against the Patriots. They're probably going to be playing from behind or at least in some kind of shootout. And I think the Patriots are going to really put a lot of coverage towards Hopkins, as they should. And I think Shorts is just going to be running around with single coverage all game. And I do think he will get plenty of targets. So I don't mind Shorts in PPR leagues. Let's talk about quarterbacks. My boy Johnny Football is finally going to get another chance. And here's the thing. If you look at the rest of his schedule, I don't like him week 15 or week 16. But this week he's got San Francisco. Do you want to put your fantasy playoff life in the hands of Johnny Football? maybe against San Francisco. I mean, in one of my leagues, I had luck. Then I was able to get Romo. And I had to start Cutler last week. Like that's the type of situation. I'm in the playoffs, so I got to start someone. That's the type of situation where I'm considering Johnny Manziel there. So I know I'm not the only one. I don't think it's a bad move. I think he could have a good week. In any type of keeper dynasty league, depending on what your settings are, you might want to consider it too. Because, if he plays well, there's no reason to think that he won't be back next year as the starter. Then another pickup and play quarterback for you, Jameis Winston. They got the Saints week 14. The Saints, they got a new defensive coordinator, but it doesn't matter. They're still giving up a ton of points. And Winston should be a safe play. He's only on a 45% of league, so if he's out there, you're not liking the quarterback situation. Not a bad pickup and play for you. Tight end, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He's healthy now. Same deal. They're playing New Orleans week 14, so he could have a big game. He's only on a 40% of leagues. So if you're one of the teams that's out there searching for a tight end who has one of the hurt guys, he could be a good play for you this week, and he does have value, I think, for the rest of the year. And my pick up and play defense for you is going to be the Jets. They're still out there in a little bit less than half the leagues. They're at home against Tennessee. I know Mariota had a big game, but I think they're going to have a much harder time against the Jets. Tennessee still doesn't really have much of a running game, so I think the Jets will be a safe play as a pick up and play defense. This is just a portion of the list. If you want to see the full list, click in the link in the description. It'll take you to our website. You can read all my fancy writing. I hope you all are in the playoffs, ready to fight for that championship. Got questions, post them in the forums, and subscribe to our channel.